Well folks, I'm starting off with a bit of bad news, but don't worry, it quickly turns into great news. According to the Oracle of Apple leaks, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, if you were hoping to snag one of Apple's first ever OLED MacBook Pros on the budget M6 chipset, and yes, budget is going to do a lot of heavy lifting at a MacBook Pro price point, you might be out of luck. Gurman says Apple is initially reserving its glorious OLED display upgrades for the high-end 14-inch and 16-inch models packing the M6 Pro and M6 Max chipsets. The base M6 14-inch MacBook Pro, the one that will make your wallet slightly less afraid, will apparently stick with the current mini LED display. It's a classic move, put the shiny new thing where the profit margins are thickest. Gotta pay to play, I guess, but it does sting for the rest of us. And this exclusivity doesn't stop at the display. The new design, the thinner chassis, and all the other goodies likely won't be coming with the base M6 MacBook Pro either. Only the M6 Pro and M6 Max will get the OLED display and the sleek new design. And if this sounds familiar, that's because Apple does this all the time to differentiate the models and nudge you towards spending more. Take the recent history. The M1 and M2 MacBook Pro models with the standard chipset kept the older chassis for a while, only for the new design to trickle down finally with the M3 generation. Even before that, big display changes like the Retina display did not come to the base MacBook Pro immediately. They were premium features for the most expensive models first. So if you want the full fat next gen experience in late 2026, you'll be paying for the Pro Max chipset whether you need the power or not. And if you do have the big bucks to splurge, those higher end MacBook Pros have leaked in full and we now know all the juicy details. And this one's not just another new M chip inside 0.001% faster performance situation. We're talking OLED display, a thinner chassis, a hole punch camera, and brace yourself, touchscreen support. Yes, Apple is finally adding touch to the Mac. It only took them 4 decades and an entire product line of iPads to admit people might actually want to touch their screens. Now, before OG Mac users start hyperventilating, this is not Apple suddenly deciding to ditch the last 40 years of Mac interaction. The move to add touch is a clear strategy to sway more Windows users over to the Mac, allowing a feature that has been standard in the PC world for years. However, this feature won't replace the classic Mac way of life. The touchscreen is meant to augment the experience, not replace it, and the keyboard and trackpad will absolutely remain as the primary way to interact. Think of it as Apple finally realizing that sometimes it is faster to tap a button than move your cursor across a 16-inch panel. And honestly, whilst I've never felt the burning need to smear my Mac screen with fingerprints, giving users more options is always a nice thing. You know, like putting extra cheese on a pizza. You don't need it, but you're certainly not going to complain. Gurman says the full redesign, including the OLED display, thinner chassis, and touch support, will arrive between late 2026 and early 2027, which is crazy considering the scope of the changes. The company hasn't touched the overall design of the MacBook Pro since 2021, the M1 Pro and M1 Max generation, and since then we've seen chip upgrades but no big aesthetic changes. That's all set to change. This new model will apparently go thinner, lighter, and sleeker, ditching the infamous notch for a hole punch camera. Finally, no more black rectangle eating into your display when you're editing or watching videos. Good riddance! And just as important, there's a completely re-engineered hinge. This new hinge is being built to keep the screen steady when you tap it, so the whole thing doesn't wobble like a jelly every time you touch it. It's a small detail, but it's very Apple to obsess over things like that. They'll probably call it something like precision touch stability on stage and spend 10 minutes demoing it, while we all quietly nod and think, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Before we go further, a quick reminder, hit subscribe and tap the hype button if you enjoy this kind of deep dive. It helps a small channel like mine massively, and you'll get the latest Apple news the second it drops. Appreciate the support as always. Pricing will almost certainly climb. OLED panels are more expensive to make, and with touch integration, a redesigned chassis, and next generation Apple Silicon, the M6 generation of chips according to Gurman, we're likely looking at something starting above the current $1,999 base price. But considering how much of a leap this sounds like, Apple fans might still just line up for it anyway. And this is a pretty strategic move. Apple plans to use the MacBook Pro line as a test bed for touchscreen tech before rolling out to other Macs. They want to see how it performs, how users respond, and maybe more importantly, whether developers actually embrace it, because let's be real, the last time Apple tried to enhance the Mac's input experience, we got the touch bar, and yeah, that didn't exactly make it into the Hall of Fame. But this isn't just another touch bar moment, it's much bigger. By the way, who are going to be supplying these displays? Samsung Display, not one of the suppliers, but the exclusive supplier. And the reason is fascinating. Samsung's invested heavily in what's called Gen 8.6 OLED production, advanced manufacturing lines designed specifically for larger panels like those found in laptops and monitors. This isn't some TV panel being trimmed down to fit into a MacBook, it's custom technology made for premium OLED laptops. This Gen 8.6 process is a game changer because it allows larger glass substrates, uses oxide TFTs, and improves both yields and efficiency. That's a lot of jargon, I know, but in simple terms, it's cheap and more reliable to make big, high-quality OLED displays. That's why OLED has been missing from Macs for so long. Not because Apple didn't want it, but because the production tech wasn't ready for Apple-grade consistency. Now, finally it is. OLED panels also allow for thinner devices since they don't need a separate backlight layer. That opens the door for a lighter, sleeker MacBook Pro, and Apple seems to be on a mission lately to make everything super thin. The iPad Pro got the ultra thin treatment in 2024, and we got the iPhone Air this year. And yes, I know that Apple has tried to make MacBooks thinner before and the results weren't that great, but the difference this time is that Apple Silicon runs cooler than Intel ever did, so thinner no longer has to mean louder fans or hotter laps. There's even talk of Apple using next generation silicon carbon batteries, a fancy way of saying smaller cells with more energy, that can help extend battery life while keeping the MacBook ultra light. Now this OLED model won't be the only refresh we're getting in 2026 because before these OLED models launch, we're expecting the M5 Pro and M5 Max MacBook Pros in early 2026. These most likely will be performance bumps, no major design changes. Then later that same year, the real showstopper, the OLED redesign with M6 Pro and M6 Max. So yes, Apple could pull off two launches in the same year, just like they did in 2023 with the M2 and M3 lines. It's not out of character for them. Remember, the original 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro launched just 5 months after the previous 15-inch. Apple's done this dance before. So to sum it all up, 2025, quite a year. All we got was the 14-inch M5 MacBook Pro, early 2026, M5 Pro and Max MacBooks, mostly incremental. Late 2026 or early 2027, the full OLED redesign, thinner, lighter, hole punch camera, touch supports, M6 chipset, and better battery life. It'll mark the biggest visual and functional leap for the MacBook Pro since the switch to Apple Silicon. The big question now is, will you wait? Because let's be honest, holding off another year or so is a long game, but if you want a MacBook that genuinely feels next gen, that's the one to aim for. Drop your thoughts below, are you excited for a touchscreen MacBook, or do you think it's Apple giving in to what they swore they'll never do? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the hype button, it really helps a small channel like mine grow, and keeps you in the loop with everything Apple's cooking up next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.